What's going on, guys? It's Salvaje, and here is my fourth 100 tips video for Fortnite Save the World. Now, as you guys know, these 100 tip videos do take time to make, so your support is always appreciated. A like on the video is awesome. Chances are that if you're watching this video, you're also not subscribed to my channel. You might want to subscribe as well. Check out the previous 100 tip videos that I've made, as well as my beginner's guide playlist in the description of this video. My supporter creator code is Salvajee. If you guys want to rock that, I would appreciate that as well. And last but not least, make sure that you hit that subscribe button for more high quality Save the World content. Now, since this is my 400 tips video, obviously I gotta do something special. As you guys know, I've done actual legit V-Buck giveaways in the past. So that's why when this video reaches 500 video likes, I'm going to be picking one person from the comment section and I'm going to be giving them 5,000 V-Bucks. All right, I don't really think 500 video likes is that much of a hard challenge since my 200 tips video has already 422. Anyways, make sure that you leave a tip in the comment section, and of course make sure that you also leave your epic username. Like that, I have a way of contacting you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned a lot. Let's get started. Tip number one, identify what type of endgame player you want to be and then just focus on that and get good at that. So for example, I'm someone that likes to focus on loadouts and of course trying to experiment as much as I can with some of the weapons in Fortnite Save the World. I don't do endurance, I don't do war games, and I don't do a lot of the limited time modes like very often. And the reason for that is because it's just not my style. I also don't have all of my traps fully legendary perked in Fortnite Save the World either. I'll talk about that later. And the reason for that is because, well, mostly I'm also a ninja, and for the most part ninjas don't really have to rely on traps as much, and they don't really have loadouts that make traps better. That's pretty much for constructors. And that leads me to tip number two, find someone who covers up your weaknesses in Fortnite Save the World. Like I said earlier, I don't have all of my traps fully legendary perked, and that's okay because I usually play with my friend Jeremy or Binge and they have their traps fully legendary perked, at least the important ones. So whenever I'm doing a tough mission, I don't really have to worry about, oh my god, I need to have all of my traps fully legendary perked and I need to be like leveling them up, because the truth is I don't really like farming legendary perk up and epic perk up as often. And if I do farm those things, I do like to of course put them into weapons rather than my traps. The point is, to be a great effective Save the World player, you don't need to be a jack of all trades, and that's why tip number 1 and 2 are the ones that I gave out first, because the Save the World endgame has like a lot of freedom, right? And it's all about sort of finding what it is that you like best, and later on, if you have another thing that catches your attention, you can just focus on that. With that said, let's get to tip number 3. I've mentioned these tips on videos in the past. I'm going to mention it again because it's really essential for the Save the World endgame. Make sure that if you have someone that is contributing to the objective and is starting to build trap tunnels, that you drop some materials for them. Specifically, if you're going to go get some quest items or if you're just going to go activate a couple of pylons, right? This is important and it helps out big time because first of all, we all know how hard it is to get some materials in Fortnite Save the World, but second of all, the more you contribute in those 100 plus missions, the better your chances of success. Specifically, if you're doing a 100 plus 4 Atlas missions, which requires a lot of materials, like that, the mission can go very smoothly, and of course you can get that maximum level of reward. Let's get to tip number 4, learn how to funnel. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see endgame players make still to this day in 2020, specifically on low level twine peaks. In Canny Valley, you could get away by not funneling, but in the Save the World endgame, it's a completely different story. What funneling basically is when you put a lot of walls and staircases in front of an enemy spawn, and you basically have a controlled traffic of Husk coming from a specific direction and within a 2 or 1 tile range. Now, the reason why this is important is because if you don't funnel in the end game, you're going to have Husk coming from all sorts of direction, which means that Husk traffic is going to be even harder to manage. You're going to have to be shooting everywhere, your ninja's going to have to be shooting everywhere, all of that stuff. That leads me to tip number 5. The reason why funneling is so important is because of trap tunneling. You have to trap tunnel in Fortnite Save the World endgame. You need to learn how to trap tunnel. Some of you guys are like, how is this an endgame tip? Well, it's an endgame tip because I've done some 100 plus level missions and I've seen a guy put 30 gas traps on an enemy spawn only to then see that spawn sort of rotate and then the dude wasted 30 gas traps, which leads me to tip number 6. You need to learn how to combo your traps. You need to learn how to be efficient as possible with all of the traps that you have in Fortnite Save the World. Like one gas trap and one wall launcher just isn't going to be enough when you get to the end game, all right? You're gonna have to you know, learn how the wall launcher works and how you can combo it with a freeze floor and how you can combo it with a broadside and then a gas trap or a ceiling electric field, for example. Knowing how to trap tunnel and knowing how to combo your traps is going to help you out big time in the Save the World endgame. Tip number 7, don't use your gadgets or abilities when a round is about to end or when you're about to finish destroying an encampment and there's like no enemies left. Obviously, you want to make sure that your ability and gadget use, it's very, very efficient in Fortnite Save the World. And trust me, I have had those circumstances where I just finished doing an encampment and destroy the encampments and I just throw up 2 turrets and I'm like, oh wait, the encampment just finished. Like there's not going to be another like wave spawn for this encampment. And yeah, I pretty much just waste an ability or a gadget that I could have used on the next encampment. Tip number 8, you need to learn how to prioritize Husk in Fortnite Save the World. I've mentioned this tip in the past. I'm going to mention it again because it's one of the most useful Save the World endgame tips that I have implemented over the past 2 years. In this clip that you guys are seeing in the background, I'm specifically focusing on Husky Husk and Lobbers because I know those are the husks that are going to be the most annoying. That leads me to tip number 9. Learn to let go of Husk sometimes. Like, I've seen a lot of players sometimes just whipping out explosive launchers to just destroy a crowd of Husk that's about to get into a trap tunnel. What are you doing? You're just wasting their ability and you're just wasting ammo. Those weak Husks that are about to get into the trap tunnels, you don't have to kill them. Let them get in the trap tunnel and let the trap tunnel take care of it. Tip number 10. At the time we'll be making this video, the only way to get to power level 131, the maximum power level in Fortnite Save the World, is by having all mythic lead survivors. So if you are about to get into the Save the World endgame, I suggest that you start paying attention to those 4-time missions that are giving away mythic leads, or that you start paying attention to your llama shop and start collecting those mythic lead survivors for your survivor squads, because those are the only shot that you have to get to power level 131. And you want to be power level 131 due to a lot of other endgame activities that we have, the mythic Storm King being one of them, of course. Tip number 11, your fort stats might be a little all over the place since you're coming over from Canny Valley. In the end game, you're gonna have to step up your game, so let's make sure that you know what fort stats are Gucci and what fort stats you need to be leveling up. Tech, focus on that. Have it 20 levels above resistance and fortitude. Now, some of you guys might be saying, Salvaje, can you go a little bit more in depth into some of these terms like fort stats and all that stuff? I'm not going in depth into some of these terms because this is an end game tips video catered towards players that are about to go into the end game. So all of you guys that are watching this should know all of the terms that I'm talking about. If you don't, you need to check out my beginner's guide playlist and then come back to this video. Tip number 12, offense. You need to focus on leveling up offense when it comes down to your fort stats as well. Have it 20 levels above your fortitude and resistance. Tip number 13. Some of y'all might be like, well, it's really good to level up fortitude and resistance because it's going to be increasing your health and shield, and obviously you're going to be surviving longer. But that's honestly kind of irrelevant. Why? Because tip number 13 is to play smart. You're not in Canny Valley anymore, my friend. All right, stop playing a melee constructor when you don't have a melee constructor build. At the end game levels of play, 100+ level missions, late game twine, you need to know your role. If you're playing a sniper character, why are you using assault rifles? I'm just trying to help you out. I'm trying to, you know, make sure that you're the smartest player in the team, okay? Anyways, tip number 14. Let's talk about some gadgets now. So, at the 100+ level missions, specifically 116 and above, the banner is a must-have if you're doing a mission that has defending for longer periods of time. So for example, if you're doing a 4-time Atlas and you're playing a constructor, run the banner, because trust me, you're gonna be helping out your teammates big time. At the 140 missions, for example, it's guaranteed that one of your teammates are most likely gonna die. Trust me, that ninja that's watching the spawn, he's gonna die eventually. I'm speaking from experience, and having the banner and spawning right at the objective, it's extremely helpful. Tip number 15, the slow field, very good if you're doing those 100 120+ level, you know, 4-time missions, because it's going to slow down the mini bosses, and the mini bosses can be very annoying at times. The slow field is also really good. Here's another tip with the slow field. I implemented it to this tip, of course. Let's say that a trap tunnel of yours goes down, you throw down a slow field and you start building the trap tunnel, and the Husk are not going to damage you as much because they're slowed down. Tip number 16, don't just throw the turret up. Don't do that, all right? Build up 2 staircases and then throw your turret. Why? Because the turret has an 8 tile range, which means that if you have the turret on a high ground area, it's going to have sort of like a 360 view and you're going to be able to damage more targets with that. Hey, let's go. That's a really good tip. I use it from time to time. Tip number 17. Make sure that if you do throw up a turret, that for the most part is watching spawns, or make sure that you also use turrets to watch specific spawns. I've said it in the past. Sometimes I'm a ninja. I throw 2 turrets up on one spawn on a 4-time Atlas missions, and I go watch another spawn, and I know that my turrets are going to be able to kill a pretty decent amount of husk. Tip number 18, and this is really important at the end game levels of play. Just make sure that you guys are paying close attention to the objectives. Specifically, if you're playing a ninja or an outlander or a melee constructor, usually what I like to do is I always like to make sure that I'm looking at the minimap, because if any of the objectives are being overwhelmed, I want to be there to help and support my teammates. Tip number 19. Repair the shelter is the easiest mission in Fortnite Save the World, even when you're playing it at a power level 160. And the reason for that is because next to no husk spawn, and it's only like 4 minutes long. And sure, you do have to, you know, get some modules. That's the annoying part about Repair the Shelter. But yeah, at the time of making this video, if there's a 4-time Repair the Shelter mission that's giving out raindrops or reperk, do it, because it's just like an easy win. Like, I'm not even kidding, guys. Like 140 4-time Repair the Shelter missions are basically a cakewalk for me. Like, I don't even fully upgrade the objective and we still win the mission, and next to no husk touch the objective. Tip number 20, 4-time Atlas missions give out the most rewards out of all missions. So if you just got to Twine and you need a lot of hero XP and you see a 4-time Atlas mission with hero XP, go ahead and do that. I've mentioned this tip on previous 100 tip videos, but again, I just want to mention it again because this is an end game guide. So if I don't mention that, I'm doing people a disfavor. Okay. Tip number 21, make sure that you're always on the lookout for missions that have the resources that you need or that you might need in the future. Here's what I mean by that. Let's say that there is a 4-time retrieve the data that's giving Legendary Perk up and Epic Perk up, and it's also giving 20 lightning in a bottle. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But let's say that there's a Deliver the Bomb that's giving 4-time hero XP and Legendary Perk up. Guess what? I'm gonna do that Deliver the Bomb mission, despite the fact that in my, I just can't stand Deliver the Bomb. The point is, I'm going through the Deliver the Bomb because it's going to have Legendary Perk up, and Legendary Perk up is a resource that I'm always going to need, right? So I'm always making sure that as an in-game player, I'm seeing all of the missions that are in the map, and I'm making sure that I'm doing the ones that have the resources that I'm going to need in the future, which leads me to tip number 22. Make sure that you guys are always watching your evolution materials and that you guys always have a lot of evolution materials. Why? Because as an in-game player, still to this day, there are those moments where I realize that I only have 20 raindrops left and I can't level up any weapons or heroes or traps. Okay. Tip number 23, that leads me forward to how many evolution materials I think you should have, so that of course you never really run out of them, because you're always going to be doing the missions that are going to be giving like 60 raindrops, stuff like that. I recommend that you have 2,000 pure drops of rain, 1,200 lightning in a bottle, 200 storm shards, and 500 to 600 Eye of the Storm. Okay, if you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say, consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm pretty sure you're finding the video very helpful. And of course, feel free to hit that like button as well. And I just want to plug my creator code. It's Salvaje. Okay, let's get back into the video. Tip number 24, in the Save the World endgame, you're going to be doing a lot of leveling from level 1 to level 50. Specifically when new weapons come out, when new heroes come out, or of course when you get those mythic leads from missions. So make sure that you know the experience numbers and the resources that you need to fully level those things. Like that, you have something to strive for, but like that, you also know how much experience and resources you're going to need to level up that brand new weapon that's going to come out in the shop. So what are those numbers? Well, let me give them to you right now. Tip 25, if you want to level up a mythic schematic or a mythic hero or a legendary hero, survivor, or schematic, you're going to need a total of 405,000 XP. Tip 26, if you want to level up a mythic lead survivor from level 1 all the way up to level 50, you're going to need a total of 535,000 survivor XP or 527,000 survivor XP. It's one of those two, because sometimes you level up the survivor with 527,000, but the game gives you back 535,000. That leads me forward to tip number 27. If you want to get a mythic survivor leveled from level 1 to 50, you're going to need a total of 533,500 survivor XP. Tip 28, let's talk about how many evolution materials you're going to need to level up a legendary or mythic hero from 1 to 50. You're going to need 200 drops of rain, 66 lightning in a bottle, 33 Eye of the Storm, 11 storm shards, and 1,275 training manuals. And I just want to point out, you need the same resources to level up a legendary or mythic weapon. Instead of needing 1,1275 training manuals, you're going to need 1,1275 weapon designs. Tip number 29, if you're going to upgrade a weapon to full legendary perks, you're going to need 1,725 legendary perk up and 1,125 epic perk up. And I just want to point out, I'm not mentioning the uncommon and rare perk up number as well as the reperk number, because that depends on how your weapon schematic comes. Some weapon schematics come with more blue perks than or less blue perks. Tip 30, let's talk about things that you should always buy from the item shop. A legendary flux reperk is a must buy always. On top of all that, you always want to be getting uncommon and rare perk up, like that you never run out of it and you never have to farm for it ever again. I never farm rare and uncommon perk up because I always buy it from the shop every single week. Tip number 31. Let's talk about everything that you need to know to get to power level 131 as fast as possible. To level up a legendary survivor from 1 all the way up to 50, you're going to need 100 raindrops, 48 lightning in a bottle, 24 Eye of the Storm, 8 storm shards, and 1,275 training manuals. Tip 32, let's say that you're leveling up a mythic lead from level 1 all the way up to level 50. You're going to need 230 drops of rain, 72 lightning in a bottle, 36 Eye of the Storm, 12 storm shards, and 1,275 training manuals. Tip 33, if you're going to level up a legendary survivor from 40 to 50, you're going to need 147,250 survivor XP. Tip 34, if you're going to level up a mythic lead from level 40 to level 50, you're going to need a total of 193,500 XP. Tip number 35, get all of your squads to level 40 before you get them to level 50. And we're doing this because like that we get to power level 100 plus as fast as possible, of course. Tip number 36, to level up one squad, assuming that your mythic lead survivor as well as all of your other legendary survivors are at level 40, you're going to need a total of 1,224,250 XP. Now, to level up all of your survivor squads, assuming that all of them have mythic lead survivors and every single survivor is at level 40, including your mythic leads, you're going to need a total of 9,794,000 survivor XP. Woo, that's a lot. Tip 37, to level up one squad from 40 to 50, you're going to need 3,600 training manuals. And to level up all of the squads from 40 to 50, you're going to need 28,000 training manuals. Tip 38, to level up one squad with a mythic lead at 40 and all of the other survivors at 40, you're going to need 372 raindrops, 204 lightning in a bottle, 136 Eye of the Storm, and 68 storm shards. Which leads me to tip number 39, you're going to need 2,976 raindrops, 1,632 lightning in a bottle, 1,088 Eye of the Storm, and 544 storm shards to get all of your survivor squads leveled up from 40 to 50, assuming that all of them have a mythic lead survivor on them. Tip number 40, you know that a mission is part of your current Twine Peaks quest line if it has the pulsating circle thingies that you guys are seeing in the gameplay example. Alright, tip number 41. I know that getting to 131 is definitely a challenge, as you guys can see by all of the statistics that I just gave, but for the most part, you want to make sure that you get to at least power level 110, 115 as fast as possible. Those power levels are going to give you the ability to do the 100 plus level missions, at least some of them, to the point where you're going to be able to like farm up all of the desired materials that I just pointed out. Tip number 42, guys, always buy storm shards from the shop. I should have said it earlier on that must buy tip, but the reason why you always want to buy storm shards from the shop, even when you're a beginner player, is because like that, when you get to the end game and you actually need to level up things to 5 stars, you're going to have a lot of storm shards. Like, I've never had to farm for storm shards ever because I've been buying storm shards since I started the game. Tip number 43, when you're coming over to Twine, guys, don't rush it, right? Because when you come over to Twine, you want to make sure that you have a pretty good, decent amount of evolution materials to start leveling up your survivors and weapons and all that stuff. And you also want to make sure that you have the right decent amount of crafting materials as well, like at least 200 storm shard, 200 obsidian, and 200 of the other twines and mineral powders, etc, etc. Tip number 44. When you first get to Twine, here's what I recommend. Level up 2 traps to 106, 2 weapons to 106, and just your main hero leveled up to 106 should be more than enough to help you in the 100 level missions and below. Tip number 45. When you're doing a 4-time Atlas mission and you're farming it, if you go into the 4-time Atlas mission and you don't see any floating atlases, just leave the game and go into a new lobby where there are floating atlases, because when you do 4-time Atlas missions that have at least 1 or 2 floating atlases, it means that the mission is just going to be a breeze and it's going to be completely easy. That leads me to tip number 46. When you're in a forest area and there are trees around the objective, don't destroy the trees. Why? Because if there are trees around the objectives, that means that lobbers are going to have a harder time actually shooting your objective, which means that most likely they will always come closer to the objective, and if they come close to the objective, chances are that they'll most likely die by one of your trap tunnels. Tip 47, always run expeditions as an endgame player. It's just going to help you, give you a lot of the materials that you're wasting in missions for traps, and most importantly, objective defense. And of course, you guys can check out my 6-minute expeditions guide that is in the beginner's guide playlist. I did that video I think 2 years ago, and that video, everything I said on that video still applies to this day, so check that out. Tip number 48, to get to power level 131, you need all of your survivors to be matching the personality with the mythic lead survivor in all of your squads. In this screenshot that you guys are seeing in the background, I have just removed one survivor that isn't matching personalities with my mythic lead survivor, and as you guys can see, I'm power level 130, which leads me to tip number 49. As soon as you get to Twine, you need to make sure that you're paying attention to the X-ray llamas and that you're farming the desired legendary survivors that you need from those upgrade llamas. Tip number 50, sniper defenders are an absolute must level in the Save the World endgame. You want to get your sniper defenders to power level 130 as fast as possible, because they're going to offer a lot of value in 4-time missions, which leads me forward to tip number 51. The best snipers for legendary sniper defenders at the time of me making this video is first the obliterator, which shoots through walls, which means that you can put your sniper on top of the objective and then wall him up with 4 walls and then give him the obliterator, and again the obliterator will shoot through walls, so that means your sniper defender will never get damaged. The tsunami is also a disgusting sniper because it basically always staggers Husk, and if you have these perks that I'm putting up on the screen, you're going to be doing massive damage to Husk because you're always going to be staggering them. The tsunami also makes smashers flinch very often, which is what makes the tsunami a really good sniper as well. And an honorable mention would be the cleaner sniper rifle, which only has 1 bullet, but fully legendary perk, this thing can be very dangerous. And of course, the neon sniper is also an honorable mention. However, I personally wouldn't choose the neon sniper because I'd rather use something like a tsunami, for example, which is going to have high impact and is going to be doing more damage than the neon sniper. Tip number 52. So I always run a high damage weapon in all of my loadouts now. Why? Because of exploder huskies. I want you guys to pay close attention to this clip that you guys are going to see. This exploder husky is about to die, and when exploder huskies are about to die, they basically trigger their propanes so that of course it explodes. But if you kill them very quickly, the propane tank completely disappears. So that's why if you're within close combat of these propane huskies, you want to make sure that you damage them, and if you are not going to finish them, you need to take out that high burst damage weapon and finish them with that weapon. The pod shot is, as you guys know, an amazing weapon to do something like that. Tip 53, you're gonna have to be getting a lot of weapons to a legendary perk when you get to the end game if you want to, like, you know, have really powerful builds. The fastest way to get legendary and epic perk up is to always be on the lookout for the 4-time legendary and epic perk up missions. But most importantly, you also want to be doing the other missions in the map as well that are giving legendary and epic perk up. I'm mentioning this because I have gotten asked a couple of times, you know, how do you get legendary perk up and epic perk up really quickly? There's no fast way. You just have to grind for it. That's just what Save the World's about, baby. Tip 54, leveling up your collection book is really good in the end game because of course it's going to be giving you all sorts of rewards, evolution materials being one of them. As you guys can see in the gameplay example in the background, leveling up items that you've placed in your collection book will actually increase your collection book level. And when you have a 19 million survivor XP like me, trust me, that 19 million survivor XP can go into leveling up all of those survivors that you have. Tip number 55, if you want to get bacon, go to a ghost town location and be on the lookout for these farms. These farms can usually give you 10 to 15 bacon. You can also run the expeditions with the red toolbox. Those expeditions will also give you bacon from time to time. Bacon is really important, as you guys know, because you need it to craft gas traps, at least at the time we'll be making this video. Tip number 56. Sometimes if you need to get a view of the map very quickly to find a specific quest item or the objective, you can just use these tornadoes in these desert map areas, and the tornadoes are going to give you, as you guys can see, a really good height advantage. Tip number 57. So kill challenges, like get a specific amount of kills with your weapon or a specific hero, can actually be done by defender. So for example, let's say that you need 300 kills with a constructor. If your defender gets 100 of those kills, those 100 kills are going to be going towards your challenge. Tip number 58, as you guys know, spawns rotate in Fortnite Save the World. So if you're playing a constructor, always make sure that you're always rotating your base to the specific trap tunnel where more husks are coming from, so that you can get the most value out of your trap related base, if of course that is what you are running. Tip 59, there are 3 questions that I always ask myself when I'm about to create a build in Fortnite Save the World. How active do I want to be? How am I going to have the objective? And will I be focusing on an ability based loadout, a weapon based loadout, or both? I'm going to be making a separate video on this going more in depth. I just don't want to spend too much time in this tip because we have a lot of more tips to go. Tip number 60, if you're going to place a defender on top of your objective, make sure that you place some anti-air traps around your defender. Like that, if lobbers of course are shooting the top of your base, the anti-air traps are going to be protecting your defender. Tip number 61, just a small tip, but there is a more tab on the bottom side of your screen, and that more tab can mark everything that you just obtained from a mission as seen, and it can also show you other things like some items that can be resetted because maybe they got nerfed or buffed. Tip number 62, let's talk about defenders again. So every defender has a weapon rating as you level them up, and this weapon rating signifies the highest level that they're going to be able to use a weapon at. So for example, if your weapon rating is 40, if you give a defender a level 50 weapon, the level 50 weapon is going to be doing damage as if it was a level 40 weapon. I hope you guys understood what I meant. That was kind of difficult to explain, honestly. Tip number 63, melee defenders are trash. Do not use them in the end game. They are trash for one massive reason. Refrigerator husk. The refrigerator husk will always kill your melee defenders because melee defenders can't counter and are not smart enough to kill the refrigerator husk. You're going to be seeing a decent amount of refrigerator husk in the end game, so let's talk about some of the ways to counter them. The shockwave as a soldier, it's really good against refrigerator husk and it's going to knock them out. The decoy as a constructor, you place it sort of next to the refrigerator husk and they're just going to turn around and hit the decoy. And then of course you have the shock tower and the teddy for the outlander, and of course the seismic smash ability, which is extremely effective. And of course for ninjas you have the dragon slash ability as well. Oh yeah, and you can also use the bull rush ability against refrigerator husk. I just did it in a match right now. I actually didn't know that that was possible because in the past it actually wasn't possible. Tip number 65, make sure that you do storm shield defense 6 as fast as possible when you get to Twine Peaks. I also want to point out in this tip, you don't need to spam trap tunnels in your storm shield defense. You and 3 other people is going to be more than enough to do up until storm shield defense 6 with of course just some simple trap tunneling close to the husk spawns. Let's move on forward to tip number 66. Always loot plants, always. Why? Because you never want to run out of fibrous herbs, and even though you're going to be doing those expeditions to get those fibrous herbs, I always loot every single plant that I see in Fortnite Save the World. Why? Because like that I can actually get fibrous herbs all the time and never run out of them. Tip 68, let's talk about spending your upgrade points on the tools section. When you get to Twine, focus on upgrading building health. That's really important because remember guys, The Husk are going to be doing more damage in Twine. Then you want to go for building repair speed. Building repair speed is really, really important. Then we're going to go for backpack spaces. And then, of course, we're going to go for the harvesting tool upgrades, like that we can farm things a little bit faster. Tip 69, as you guys know, you're going to need a lot of training manuals to get to 131. And you also need a lot of training manuals and weapon designs and trap designs also to level up things and Save the World. How are you going to be mostly getting those? Well, from time to time, Save the World is going to be giving like free upgrade llamas. But on top of all that, you can also get a lot of training manuals by buying upgrade llamas. Or, I just want to point out, you could just get it how I do it. It's just by playing the game and opening up those event llamas. The event llamas are going to be giving you survivors. They're going to be giving you blue weapons. You're then going to retire those survivors and those blue weapons to get training manuals, trap designs, and weapon designs as well. Tip 70, Shadow Shard or Obsidian. So Shadow Shard weapons are going to have 300 durability instead of 375 durability. And Shadow Shard weapons are also going to be doing more damage, are going to have more impact, and are going to have a little bit of a slow rate of fire. And Obsidian weapons are going to have 375 durability, but they will not get an increase in damage and impact. They're just going to get like the regular like level up increase in damage. Anyways, here is my thought process when it comes down to Shadow Shard or Obsidian. If it's a melee weapon, for the most part, I always go Obsidian. And if it's a weapon that I'm going to give to a defender, I'm also going to go for Obsidian most of the time. Now, if it's a ranged weapon and I want it to do a lot of damage, I'm going to go for the Shadow Shard option. I do want to point out, however, that it's going to get to a point where you have so much Shadow Shard on Obsidian and so much Sunbeam and Bright Core that it's really just going to come down to your personal preference. Tip number 71, let's talk about the best way to get those tier 5 materials so that you can craft those level 50 schematics. Archaeologist is one of the best farming outlanders in Fortnite Save the World at the time we're making this video. So you can use Archaeologist, go into a private mission, and go farm the specific material that you want to farm, like mechanical parts or mineral powder. I'm not going to talk about how to get those because you're about to get into the end game. You should know how to get those already. Anyways, I also want to point out for this tip as well is another really good method of getting those tier 5 materials is of course to do level 100 plus destroy the encampment missions, because level 140 encampment can sometimes give you like 5 sunbeam. As you're doing missions in Fortnite Save the World endgame mission, make sure that you're always doing the storm chest. This is why I recommend that if you want to get tier 5 materials, you should do destroy the encampments, because in Destroy the Encampments, you can get up to 3 Storm Chest spawns, which means that's a lot of potential Sunbeam and Bright Core, as well as other tier 5 materials. After you have reinforced your base in a public match and also laid down a couple of traps, you could also farm the materials that you need, because there's always going to be those teammates that are going to be getting quest items or activating pylons. That leads me forward to tip number 72. Pylons. Which ones should you always activate? There's always one pylon that I like to activate on all of the endgame missions that I do, and it's the speed pylon, because the movement speed can actually help out a lot when it comes down to Husk. It's very, very underrated, but it's really, really helpful. Tip number 73. I recommend that you only do up to Twine Peak Storm Shield Defense 6, because the higher your Storm Shield Defense is in Twine Peaks, the harder your weekly missions are going to be. Like, there are some people that need to complete 10 mission alerts in 140 plus zones just to get 345 Legendary Perk up. Why do that when you can complete 10 mission alerts in a level 116 zone, for example, or a level 124 zone, which is like way easier and more players are in those missions? So that's my tip for you guys when it comes down to easy legendary and epic perk up via your weekly mission. Tip number 74. I'm not an expert when it comes down to endurance or war games or storm shield defenses, but there are many people in the community that are. So I'm going to leave a Google Docs link in the description of this video, and that Google Docs link is going to tell you all of the Twine Peak endurance spawns and the war game spawns and all that stuff. It's by this guy, I believe, called JK4YY. Again, his Google Docs document is in the description. Check that out. Tip number 75. This is something that I always do whenever I'm farming a 4-time mission in Fortnite Save the World in the end game. You're gonna need as much help as you can get in these 4-time missions. So if you go into a 4-time mission and you're gonna farm it for a while, just ask in the chat, hey, does anyone want to join me? I'm gonna be farming this mission for the next couple of hours. Like that, you have at least one person that you know you can count on. Let's move on forward to tip number 76. When you're going to make a hero loadout, sometimes you need to look for a specific hero. So if you want to look for a specific hero that's going to cater to a specific ability, you can go to the bottom right side of the hero loadout section and hit toggle descriptions. Like that, you can find that specific hero that you're looking for a little bit easier. Tip number 77, I've been playing the Save the World endgame for 2 years, and I've never ever lost a mission because one of my traps wasn't fully legendary perked. So yes, that's the tip that I want to mention for 77. You don't need to fully legendary perk your traps, but I do recommend that you do get essential perks to legendary. For example, for my gas trap, I like to have the effect duration on legendary as much as possible, like that I know the gas trap is being as effective as possible. If the trap focuses on reload speed and it has a really bad reload speed, maybe I want to be increasing the reload speed all the way up to legendary, like that I get more out of the trap, etc, etc. Tip number 78. Never recruit a legendary weapon from the collection book. The first thing that you want to do is you want to recruit the epic variant of that legendary weapon that you want, and then you want to click the upgrade to legendary button. And if it has the 6 perk that you want, then you upgrade that epic weapon to legendary. For example, I recruited this legendary Wraith Assault Rifle, but it had Affliction for the 6 perk. I don't want Affliction, I want Snare because I want the husk to be slowed down. So what I did is I recruited an epic Wraith Assault Rifle, and then I'm going to hit the upgrade button, and as you guys can see, this Wraith Assault Rifle does have Snare if I upgrade it to legendary, so therefore I'm going to upgrade it to legendary. This is pretty much the most effective way to make sure that you have a perfectly quote-unquote god-rolled weapon in Fortnite Save the World. However, do keep in mind that some weapons have a permanent 6 perk. Like when the Wraith Assault Rifle first came out, for example, it only had the get 5 headshots and you get 30% more damage 6 perk. Tip number 79, sometimes it's really hard to find players in the Save the World endgame, at least at the time we're making this video. So a little tip that I have for you guys is if you guys can't find anyone on the server that you're at, just change servers. Like sometimes I change to the Europe server, sadly, because there's no one online or there's no one at the endgame levels of play on the missions that I want to do, and I'm going to have bad ping, but hey, at least I'm going to have some people to play with. Alright, so I want to focus now on some gameplay tips that you guys may or may not know about. Let's start off with tip number 80. The Bull Rush ability can actually be used to stop a smasher charge. So if you're playing a constructor with Bull Rush, make sure that you're always around the objectives to stop those deadly smashers from destroying the objective. Additionally, if timed correctly, the Bull Rush ability can also save you from a taker that's charging towards you. But that's really hard to do, which is why I'm not going to showcase a gameplay example for that. Tip number 81, you can actually use the Bull Rush ability to throw a mini boss off the map. Tip number 82, use high impact weapons like the double boiler shotgun to throw Husk off the map and easily eliminate them. Which leads me to tip number 83. Make sure that you're always using the environment to your advantage in Fortnite Save the World. If you have an objective that's close to a border of the map, make sure that you place a lot of wall launchers so you can throw a lot of Husk off the map with the wall launchers. Or let's take a look at this gameplay example. The Husk are going to be dropping down from this mountain, so I'm going to be placing a lot of the dancing wall traps, like that when the Husk fall from the mountain, they start dancing guaranteed, and of course I have a lot more time to take them out. It's all about using your environment effectively if you want to have an easier time in the end game when you're making trap tunnels. Tip number 84, if you like this video and subscribe, your crush is going to text you back. Also, make sure that you use abilities to break structures in Fortnite Save the World, like the Bull Rush ability, the Rosie ability, the minigun ability, as well as the lefty and righty ability. At the time we're making this video, is going to be breaking structures extremely quickly. So instead of breaking them with your pickaxe, for example, you could just be using your ability just to clear an area very, very quickly. Tip 85, if you fall from a high distance as a soldier, you can always use the shockwave ability before landing and you're not going to take any fall damage. Tip 86, the Xenon bow arrows penetrate everything in Fortnite Save the World multiple times. So if you have a quest to destroy TVs, for example, or teddy bears or arcade machines, just throw the Xenon bow projectile in a general direction where you're going to find those TVs, for example. And as you guys are seeing the gameplay example in the background, it's extremely easy to complete these daily quests with the Xenon bow. Tip number 87, you can throw frag grenades on top of the Shielder Husk shield, and if they have the Keep Out Team perk, or sometimes even without the Keep Out Team perk, they're actually going to damage the Shielder Husk. Shielder Husk are extremely annoying, so this tip is very, very helpful. Make sure that you guys execute on it. Tip number 88, place tier 3 items and below in your storage, like that you have a lot of backpack space. Like a lot of folks in the end game struggle with oh my god, I hate that word. Whatever, let's keep going. Backpack space, a lot of people struggle with it. It's just because they just want to loot hoard. Like, you guys don't need the tier 3 materials and below. Just have like 100 of each in storage and you should be Gucci, or 100 of each in your backpack and then put a lot of the things on storage, which of course leads me to tip number 89. Always have excess materials in your storage as well as excess ammo, right? The reason why you want to have extra materials and extra ammo in your storage is because let's say that you're going to farm a mission for a specific amount of time. You could just go into your storage and always get materials instead of just having to farm in the mission or having to farm multiple times in between the mission. Tip number 90. Let's say that you got a lot of, for example, efficient mechanical parts, right? And you don't really have a lot of space for it, or you just want to get rid of those efficient mechanical parts. So what you can do is you can actually craft a lot of traps that require that specific crafting material. Like that, you save the crafting material in the trap, and then in the future you could then dismantle the trap so that you can of course get those materials back. Let's move on forward to tip number 91. I just want to go over some of the weapons that you absolutely need in the end game. Some of you guys might already have this weapon. If you do, I do apologize. But the Wraith Assault Rifle is really good. The Whisper 45 is a really good pistol. The Noble Launcher is a really good AoE rocket launcher. And the Spectre SMG is also really good. And if there's one bow that you absolutely need, it's the Xenon bow. It's hands down the best bow in the game when it comes down to massive crowd control damage. And of course, utility as well. Tip number 92. If there's one mythic hero that you absolutely need in the Save the World endgame, is Mega Base Kyle. At least if you play Constructors, because Mega Base Kyle is going to give you the Supercharged Traps team perk, and that's going to be extremely helpful in the endgame. Tip number 93. Let's talk team perks real quick. I'm not going to be mentioning how to get these team perks because most likely you know, because again, you're about to head into the endgame. Best Soldier team perks: Happy Holidays, Preemptive Strike, Keep Out. Outlander team perks: Happy Holidays, Bioenergy Source, 1-2 Punch, Long Arm of the Law. Constructor: Happy Holidays, Boom Base, Bioenergy Source, really good. Recycling is pretty useful too. Ninja team perks: the Dim Mac team perks, really good. Bioenergy Source, Preemptive Strike, and totally rocking out. Tip number 94. Let's go over some really good trap tunnel builds that every endgame player should know. There is the 1x1 launcher, ceiling, and wall trap build that you guys are seeing right here. And of course, it involves you having a 1x1 and tilting the floor like it is in the gameplay example, and then putting a ceiling and a wall trap, of course, ideally a broadside. Then there is the classic timeout room build, which is just going to have a wall launcher that's going to be sending the husk into a timeout room. And then, of course, the husk are going to be going back into the wall launcher and getting sent back into the timeout room as well. And then we have tip 96, the timeout room with the launch back. So this is going to be timeout room on the beginning one, and then on the second wall launcher that you guys are seeing in the gameplay example, you're going to send the husk into a floor launcher that will then send the husk back to the beginning entrance of the trap tunnel. Tip number 97. This is something I don't see endgame players do enough. I do it from time to time when I actually need it. Let's say that you need adhesive resin. Just go into the chat and ask these people for adhesive resin. You don't have to be a dick about it. All you gotta say is, hey guys, you know, does anyone have extra adhesive resin to give out? Endgame players usually have a lot of materials and they're always willing to donate and pay it forward. Tip number 98. Before you do the Mythic Storm King, make sure that you complete the Mythic Storm King weekly quest line, and then you do the Mythic Storm King. Like, if you don't do the Mythic Storm King weekly quest challenge first of like saving survivors or destroying mini bosses, you're not gonna get any mythic weapons from the Storm King. Also, for anything Storm King related, make sure that you guys check out my Mythic Storm King playlist in the description below. That's why I didn't really talk a lot about the Storm King in this guide, because it's already, you know, longer than it needs to be. Okay, so tip number 99. Something that has kept me invested in Fortnite Save the World in these past 2 years is goals. You need to set goals in Fortnite Save the World if you want to keep enjoying the game. That leads me forward to tip number 100. Make sure that you guys are always doing every single quest line in Fortnite Save the World, because you never really know when a hero or when a weapon from a specific quest line is going to be good. Oh, bonus tip for tip 100. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, because I make some of the best Save the World content on YouTube. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop it a like, subscribe to join the Salvaje Cartel. This video took me an entire week to make, with some 11-hour work days just working on the video, guys. So your like and support a creator code usage is appreciated. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll be seeing you all in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Peace out.